Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. I'm Don Helbig alongside Ryan Sir. And before we introduce our special guest for this episode, Ryan, an iconic attraction at Walt Disney World Magic Kingdom, gave its last rides this weekend. Splash Mountain, your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I'm sad to see any attraction go. Obviously, the Disney World, Disneyland, all the Disney stuff is never going to be finished. So you can't fall in love with any attraction because it'll have its day and it'll be replaced with something bigger and better. Sad that it's something so iconic, but life goes on. I didn't wait the 4 hours for it. Did you?
No, did not wait up to 4 hours for it. But, it was always one of my favorite rides when I would be at the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Now, you can't ride Splash Mountain at Walt Disney World anymore, but what you can do is you can follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. You can also, if you're listening to us, you can search for us on YouTube and see the video version. We're really good looking people, so you'd probably really enjoy that. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube because we're going to start going live and doing fun things like giveaways and so on. And if you're watching on YouTube, please follow us on your favorite podcast app if you prefer the audio version. So, Don, what do we got going on today?
Well, Ryan, the Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters Company, which was first established in 1904, it's one of the oldest active roller coaster manufacturers in the world and has played a critical role in the evolution of roller coasters over the years. It's been around for nearly 120 years of business, hundreds of wooden roller coasters that it's built, including Dorney Park's Thunderhawk, Knoebel's Phoenix, Hershey Park's Comet, the Yankee Cannonball at Carnobi Lake, and the Wildcat at Lake Compounce. Tom Rebbie, he joined the company in 1977, and he now owns and runs the company with his daughter Janine, and we're excited to welcome them to the Attractions Group podcast. So, how's the winter months treating you so far?
How are you guys doing? How's the
Uh,
winter? How's the winter treating you?
it's just weird. It's right now. I think it's raining, and earlier we had giant snowflakes. So, but that's the weather is doing fine. As far as the company, we're busy as all get out this time of year.
Awesome. Awesome. So, as Don mentioned, PTC's been in business for about 120 years. You've been involved for what, about 45 of them? How did you get involved?
45 years and 4 months. Yeah,
Yeah.
about right. How I get involved? I got out of high school. I worked at a local tile company and went to school at night to get my police science degree. And walked into the firehouse one night. I was complaining how much I hated making bathroom tile, pushing bathroom tile, cleaning bathroom tile. It was just this major factory. It was over 1,800 employees, and one of the guys said, "Well, you ought to come work where I do." And I said, "Well, you make pinball machines." He goes, "No, I build skee ball machines." And I said, "Well, what can I do?" He said, "They got a guy just retired in the roller coaster department. They're going to be looking for somebody." So went over the next day, applied for a job, or took the application and took it back the following day. They said, "Well, we're going to look through them and we'll give you a call." I went back the next week and said, "I'm still interested." And they said, "Well, we will give you a call once we go through them." Went back the third week and they said, "You just don't get that. We'll call you. Don't come see us," kind of thing. I went back 5 weeks in a row. The sixth week, I was like, "Ah, the heck with it, I'm going home." So instead of stopping, as I got home to my apartment, I could hear the phone ringing, and I ran in. I had still had my motorcycle helmet on. I grabbed the phone. I said, "Hang on a second, please," and put the phone down. Took my helmet off, and the voice on the other end said, "Tom, it's Mike Flanagan at Philadelphia Toboggan. When can you start?" And I felt horrible, and but I had to take the helmet off to talk on the phone. So. But anyways, that's how it started. I went in the next day, told my boss, my shop foreman, that I was going to Friday be my last day, and of course he was like, "Nope, we want 2 weeks notice, or you'll never get a good resume or a good review from us. And if you put us on a resume, it'll be terrible." And I was like, "Well, okay. You might notice I'll be gone. I'll be 2 weeks gone now." So, anyways. started work the following Monday at PTC, drilling holes in floorboards for 3-seat roller coasters. And 16 years I was general manager. And Sam had sold the company or sold Skee Ball off and kept the company. And I stayed on with Sam and Sam High, that is, who was the company had been in the High family for over 70 years. His father and grandfather were the corporate attorneys, and his grandfather was one that did the incorporation papers in 1904. So that was that opportunity knocking thing Mom always talked about. So I said, "All right, and Sam offered to sell me the company. I figured, got to work on that, got to make that happen." And here we are, 32 years later, and your children go to college, and my favorite daughter decides to come to work for me, and only on a temporary basis, because I had told people that too when I first came here. I said, I'm only here till I find a better job. And she's been telling people the same thing, and it's now 12 years that she's been here. So
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, Janine. You've been around it your entire life, with around PTC, the industry. Now, did you think this would be something that you were going to end up doing, or was it I'll try it and see how it goes? And like Tom mentioned, 12 years now, soon becomes 45. So just kind of talk about how you got involved here and what your kind of day-to-day thing might be.
Sure. So the short answer to your question is no, I never dreamed of working here. I grew, I grew up, everybody would ask, park owners, customers, roller coaster enthusiasts, as I got older, are you going to go and work for Dad? Are you going to take over? That type of thing. And the answer was always no, I'm going to be a teacher. My aspiration was to teach kindergarten or elementary school. So I went to college, got my bachelor's degree I got a dual degree in Pennsylvania. So I can teach early ed, which is birth to third grade or 8 years old, and a second degree in elementary ed, which is K to 6. So I was certified in that. Came out of school in Pennsylvania at an odd time in the teaching world. A lot of people that were scheduled to retire were actually holding back and not retiring. And a lot of people were tenured and contracted. So it was really only sub positions at first. So I came out of college in May of 2011, and the office here at PTC needed some help in the filing system and catching up in paperwork. And so my dad said, we need this help, and you need a job that potentially is going to be flexible to allow you to go on interviews. So
a boss. She needed a boss that understood her career goals.
Yes. So it was just like, okay, well, yeah, I'll come in and do what I've done in summers previous when, in between babysitting gigs and summer jobs through high school and college. If they needed help here or there, I'd come in and help them out around the office. So started in May, and then it soon became, okay, well, you finished this task, let's learn this. Now let's learn that. Now let's learn D. Okay, now we're going to learn H. Oh, now we're down to the other part of the alphabet. We're learning Z.
I keep telling her she needs to put on her business card underneath her name.
I do everything that Tom doesn't want to do. So an opportunity came up in August of 2011 where Tom needed to travel to China to see some of our customers over there. And he said, is your passport up to date? I said, yes. And he goes, you're going to come to China with me. And I looked at him like he had 7 heads and said, no, I'm not there. You don't need me there. He said, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And I said, okay. And in that, the idea was, well, the school year is in all these districts that I'm applying and my name's out there for sub positions, and I was doing interviews for a couple of like preschool positions because I could be obviously a certified preschool teacher. And I just said, well, why don't I just pull all of that stuff and remove my candidacy and I'll go to China. And I was also put in charge that year to plan our European trade show and then the IAPA trade show. So why don't we reassess around Christmas? And then it became, well, let's reassess around summer. And then 3 years had gone by and it was just like, you know what? I have fallen into this and I've fallen in love with it. I do use my teaching degree at times, so it comes in handy. That was just a mental hurdle I had to get over for a while of just, oh my gosh, I went to school for something that I'm not doing. So there was a little bit of like mental gymnastics behind that, some guilt. But when you sit down and look at it, there are people all over the world who maybe they got a degree in business or communications and they use facets of it every day in their work, but maybe that's not specifically what they're doing. So, yeah, it's very much in a way the same story as Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a police science degree. I was a cop for 11 years. Well, I also worked here because I wanted to retire at 45, but then this baby came along and changed the plans for her mother and I. So all's good.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess you kind of end up where fate takes you rather than where you want to go, and we can all agree on that. Um, so when we talk about Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters, yeah, obviously the layperson who's familiar with the company is going to associate you with roller coasters and wood coaster trains and so on. You also mentioned skee ball, which in my opinion is the greatest theme park game out there. Love skee ball. But the other thing that people, I guess, know a little bit less, but some people know is that carousels. You guys made 87 carousels. Can you tell us a story about PTC's involvement with carousels? And this question is actually for both of you. Of the remaining ones of the 87, what are some of your favorites?
Ones that are still authentic and not fiberglass reproduction of the horses because the park sold the horses off. You know, I like it. I like the original carousels. Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Carowinds have them. Hershey Park, it's a place right near us, about 20 miles away, called Peddler's Village. They have PTC 59 there. But the carousel involvement with PTC, from what I was told by the chief engineer, Noli Janata, who worked for the company for 50 years or so, or 45 years it was. And he had told me that how the company pretty much started was in 1902. Henry Augie was an entrepreneur in Germantown, one of the burbs of Philadelphia. And he had a machine shop also. And a friend of his said, hey, can you make this part? It belongs to my carousel. Carousel's not running. I'm not making money on it. And summertime, it takes 6 months to get parts from Germany. So he ended up making a couple parts for him. And the next thing you know, other carousels, and I think there was like 20 somewhere around the city of Philadelphia, all different boroughs. And he just started making parts. And then he's like, well, if I'm making parts, why don't I just start building them here? And that's how it started. They also, Philadelphia Toboggan acquired Denzel later on. They acquired Rollers or Oregon so they could keep the traditional band organ running. For some reason, they sold that off years later. So it just parlayed into other things. And the carousels, when people look at them and they see a PTC, you see the difference in designs of the horses. But PTC, from what I've been told and by carousel enthusiasts, that's usually the favorite of the group because of the style of the horses. Toboggan also built log flume rides, dark rides, Panther cars. These little kids could drive the cars, and because again, what I was told by Sam High was when they built a roller coaster, the property was too valuable just to have one ride on it. So they used to design it to put these little Panther cars, and little kids, in a lot of parks like Knoebels, they have a train that runs through around some of their coasters. So it's valuable property, and why not make it work for a couple different rides? And Toboggan ended up buying Skee Ball and kind of dallied with it in the early 50s, and then in the 60s it kind of took off. In the late 60s, when I came here in the 70s, they couldn't keep up with production on it, and it was just amazing how much they did, and they were able to get out the door. So yeah, over the years, Toboggan diversified itself, did other things than just roller coasters. We primarily do roller coaster cars, but we do support any ride that's out there. Any Crazy Daisy rides, or the cups and saucers, some people call it. We still support making parts for them. We've got over 7,000 drawings that took 15 years to digitize. So that way we can help a park if they're like, hey, we can't find this part. We don't know what it is. Just know where it broke off the carousel. And if we can help them out, or any of the rides, all the better for the park. And that's what we're in for it, mainly for the safety, but also for the enjoyment and seeing people enjoy rides. And what do you got to add? I could bather on all day long.
Yeah, PTC no longer designs roller coasters from scratch, but you look at your social media channels, you got a lot going on in the shop. Talk about the different projects that you do today as a full service company.
You want to read them off? We're sitting in a conference room, and we look to our left, which right now we've got all the winter overhauls we're doing for parks, and we're doing one new build for brand new trains for a park, but they don't want them till September. So it's very nice that we're that busy, and we can't tell you who the park is. They haven't released the information to the public, but so sorry.
Eventually.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in-house this year we have Wild Waves Timberhawk, Six Flags Over Georgia, the Great American Scream Machine, Worlds of Fun Timberwolf, Six Flags America Roar, Six Flags America Wild One, Dorney Park Thunderhawk, Cedar Point Blue Streak, Adventureland Outlaw, Funtown Splashtown Excalibur, Idlewild and Soak Zone, the Rolo Coaster, Kennywood, One Train from the Racer, and Kima Boardwalk, the Boardwalk Bullet. And then we have over 50 plus mechanisms that parks are sending back to us to overhaul for them. So those are your safety mechanisms for the lap bars. It's another service we can provide instead of an entire overhaul. If you just have parts of your train that maybe your maintenance staff can't focus on, you can also send those back to us. So very busy. And then as Tom said, late spring through the summer, we'll be producing some brand new trains. Eventually will be announced.
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, so essentially, a lot of people seem to be aware of the fact that you guys rehab trains and stuff, and some parks do it themselves, but a lot of them go back to the original manufacturer to have them rehabbed. So it's interesting that you're still building new trains. Obviously, if you're involved in this the coaster community and stuff, you know examples of the past couple years where new PTC trains have added to the rolling stock. So that's really cool. So speaking of the coaster community, let's talk about this. Always a big debate. It'll probably never be settled. Steel or wood? So you guys are on the wood coaster side professionally. What are your thoughts on steel coasters versus wood coasters? Which are your personal favorites and why?
You want me to start or you start?
Sorry.
When I was 11 years old, my dad took my sister and my brother and I to Dorney Park. Now, we grew up in, he was a cop in Cheltenham. So we grew up in the shadow of Willow Grove Park. And we went there every year for the police fireman's banquet. In fact, behind us, Janine scoots a little bit out to the side. This is one of the original cars from Willow Grove Park. There's another original car at Kings Island, which I gave a whole speech about. Not speech, but somebody asked me about it, and I gave them the history and how it ended up from our loading dock to Kings Island. And the third one went to Charlie Canfield out at San Diego or Santa Cruz. And then Charlie turned around and donated it to the Coaster Museum. And when they got it, Charlie said, "I don't know where I got it. I picked it up someplace." And they put a picture of it, and I was able to solve their mystery. But so I was 11. We rode the coaster. My sister and I clunked heads, got off the coaster. She was crying. I apparently have a harder head. And my dad yelled at me and smacked me in the back of the head for my sister getting hurt. So I thought, that Pavlov thing, I'm not riding that roller coaster anymore because I get smacked around. And so at 11 years old, I didn't ride a roller coaster again until I was 22, mainly because I was working here. And ironically, Sam sent me to Dorney Park to troubleshoot something they were doing. And so, of course, they're like, "Well, get in, take her for a ride. You'll see what it's like." Alrighty. And so I figured nobody's going to slap me. But my favorite coaster, and it's not because Don's sitting here, I have said it many times in live tape, in interviews, in magazines, the Beast. The Beast has absolutely been my favorite since the day I went out there to actually troubleshoot it then, right before it opened. And I ended up taking it for a ride with one of the maintenance guys, Charlie White was his name. And he said, "You didn't ride this?" I know. "Well, get in, we'll go for a ride." And it was right after lunch. And unfortunately, one of the masons who was doing something inside the circle as you come out around the Beast and then you go start for the lift hill, he took a big bag of cement and laid it across the track and then walked away to go get another one. And as we came around the corner, Charlie looked at me and just yelled at me, "Close your eyes, shut your mouth." And boom, we hit this bag of cement. And when we came back, everybody was laughing because we had all over us. And they said, "We could see where you were going." It was like, somebody riding through the Kalahari Desert in the Conch Trail leaving or from the cement going around. But to me, it was just like, this is an amazing, absolutely amazing, fun ride. And the people at Kings Island, maintenance staff, and for what I remember, some of the office people, they were really great. And I just remember my boss telling me, "Well, if you got time, you spend a couple of days and just be there, let them know that we care about them." And so I spent a couple more days there, and just never pictured myself being in the amusement industry. Because I always thought, somebody pours water on them and they grow, and that's how you get an amusement park. Never thought that there was people behind it, and they built things. And now going to an IAPA show, 1,100 exhibitors and everything imaginable. So, all right, I'll stop. You turn.
I'm definitely partial to wood coasters. It's how coasters got their starts, the bread and butter. I don't think steel coasters would exist without the wood coaster. So it's a little easier than chicken and the egg. I thought of something.
I thought of something else. I had the privilege of meeting John Allen 6 times. He would come to the shop and he would walk around and everybody would go over and talk to him as he walked through the building. And I got introduced to him. And I guess about the third or fourth time he was there, I had picked up a book. It was called Funtown USA, I believe it was, something like that. And it had every amusement park, what the good time to go to, and this and that. But they had interviews. And they had an interview, and I'm reading through this book when it's John Allen. This is the guy that comes in and talks, and and he would ask me how, he's like, "How you doing, kid? You building them good? And make them strong." And I thought, okay, it's probably some old guy who used to work here, but didn't realize who he was till probably I read that article. So the next time he came in, I asked him. I said, "You said in the article they asked you about steel roller coasters, and you said you didn't like them because you don't know anybody small enough to crawl through the tubes to check the welds." And he said, "No, that's not what I said." And I'm thinking, I know what I read. And he goes, "I said, I don't know any son that's small enough to walk through the tubes to check the welds." I lip synced what he said, but he said it verbatim, and I just stood there and went, "Oh, that's probably why they said it that way in the book." Then, but from that point on, I think the first steel coaster I ever rode was a Super Duper Looper at Hershey Park, and uh, they're nice, but it doesn't give me the same feeling riding clickety clack down the track. The noise going up the lift hill, wind blowing your hair, your ears. So I prefer wood coasters, and not because I just work here, but
Yeah, it's funny. Both of those stories, Tom. I'm sure you don't remember because I'm just some random dude. But the first time I met you was at some event at Kings Island. This was during Paramount's. This would have been 2005 or earlier. And I remember you telling the cement story about the Beast. And when I came up to talk to you afterward, and I remember asking you if you met John Allen, and you told me the story about I don't know a person that's something or another small enough to climb inside to check the weld. So that's funny that you really sparked a 20-year-old memory for me with that.
see, this is why I'm a perpetual Boy Scout. I can't lie. I just so now I'm repeating the same story back to you, and got to be the truth.
Not making it.
I don't make this. My life's too weird for color TV, and I don't make this stuff up. It just happens to me.
Yeah, I'm very much on the wood coaster over steel myself. That's what I, started out with, grew up with, was the wood coasters. There's nothing like it. But, riding a roller coaster, very thrilling. But when you're involved and you do what you do, there's another thrill when you see people, you watch them ride one of the coasters that, maybe PTC designed, or they're using your trains. What's that like? How kind of talk about that kind of thrill?
Most amazing thing I ever saw, and uh, I'm not lying about this. First time I went to Japan for the opening of the Nagashima Spa Land coaster, I just, walking around with my interpreter because of my size and because she was kind of petite. I'm 6'3" and broad-shouldered, and everybody when we walked up onto the platform, everybody thought I was some American football player or Godzilla, one or the other. But, I have videotape that I took of people getting off that coaster on the opening day. I'm standing there, and I just wanted to get their expressions. And I have a woman who got out of the coaster car and crawled across the floor on her hands and knees in this hysterical crying, laughing. And I was videotaping her, and as she went past me, I just stopped and figured, okay. And then somebody, I hear all this laughter, and I turn around and look. Here she had wet her pants completely from the ride. And you see stuff like that. It's funny. I like standing at the exit of a roller coaster if it's something that we're involved in a new project, or even the old ones. Canobles is a great one. We go up there once a year or so. Janine goes up a lot more. Her and her husband, they just love all the food.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they stay so skinny, but I still get just excitement or just, a feel good feeling that watching people get off. Love to see people get off a ride and go, that was fun. That was great. Let's go get back in line again. And that's what you want to hear. You don't want people getting off your $10 or $20 million ride and going, I ain't ever getting back on anything like that again. It's like, oh, crap. I haven't seen that experience. All I've seen is, like I said, it was one Japanese woman who was just laughing and crying hysterically at the same time, and unfortunately, she wet her pants for the day. But yeah, I like that. I like knowing that people like something you've done, and um, I have a desk, I have an office, but I hate sitting at that desk and office all day long or going through paperwork and stuff. My love is out in the shop. I get out there and I walk around. I can't admit it to the workman's comp company that I actually build anything anymore, but that's where I started. That's what I love doing, is just putting stuff together and building stuff. And I made her do it too.
But workers' comp's allowed to know about her doing it, though, right?
Yeah, mostly clerical, but if they need some extra
I
hands,
just
they know where
don't
to
know if this
find
podcast is admissible in court. That's why I'm asking. Okay. All right. Well,
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 one thing
continuing.
when you start, I said, you're going to go to trade shows, you're going to meet customers. You got to know what you're doing or what you're selling or what you're troubleshooting for them. So she comes in with her work jeans and her work boots, and we have spent a lot of time working side by side, and it's kind of fun sometimes because the two of us will go out there and we'll start working on setting wheels or doing something. And if somebody else is working, I can see it. They're constantly looking up and they're whispering each other. And I was told, but it's like, hey, the two move really fast. It's hard to keep up with them. So it's a nice feeling, but that's what I
Dynamic
love.
duo.
Anyway,
Well, speaking of your employees, PTC has, in the history of the company, given the world 147 roller coasters, and every employee is important, but some of the most legendary ones have come through the company. Johnny Miller, John Zalar, Herbert Schmeck, and perhaps the greatest one of them all, John Allen. Talk about their legacy within the industry and more particularly within your company. Just knowing that some of the most well-known names amongst the industry have had PTC on their paycheck.
the unfortunate thing is that I've seen maybe a handful of employees catch on and realize this is not an everyday punch them out kind of a place, a pill factory or something. This has a legacy to it. And John Allen and Herb Schmeck and Ollie Janata, the Miller, they're all a legacy part of the company. But it's sad that guys I worked with, they just didn't care. It was just come to work, paycheck, go home, and repeat the following week. And me, I was, golly, when the movie Roller Coaster came out, I can remember just sitting in the theater and waiting for it to run a second time, just because I saw our stuff. And then reading articles and then getting involved more with IAPA, even when Sam owned the company and we would go to shows, I started catching on when people would read my name badge. They're like, "Oh, you're from Philadelphia Toboggan. Yeah, we love, we got this, and we did that, and you guys." I'm like, "Oh, this is great." So I realized in early start of the company that this is something special. And not everybody sees it that way. They see it just as a job. We've got a great group of employees in here. Uh, they're, they're really dedicated to the work. And I really can't say, I mean, they all know what goes on because I'm constantly coming up with something that we have our monthly safety meetings. And I'm like, hey, look, here's a bunch of magazines that they mentioned the company in an article again. Or here's another video we found that has to do with the company. And they get it. We have a good group, and they get what goes on here. So it's sad that in 45 years, I can only think of maybe a handful of guys that worked here that really understood what the history was or legacy of this company. And the day after I bought it, actually the day of, when I signed all the paperwork, I was driving back from the attorney's office, and all I could think of was, I hope I'm not living in a shopping cart next week. And 32 years later, and having Janine here, every day I come in, it's Father's Day for me. I get to see her. She's always perky. And, it's nice that she's got an interest in this now. Because I'm constantly getting asked, I didn't start here with this. This just happened. So eventually there's going to come a point where she's going to take over. Either I'll be dead and she gets everything, or she's going to decide herself if she wants to take over and keep it going, because I wasn't about to let it go in a handbasket in my tenure here. So that's my point. Get turn. I'm going to let you guys talk.
It's interesting that you bring this question up today, because we here at PTCI really pride ourselves on the illustrious and rich history that this company has. It's not lost on Tom or I how other coaster company or amusement companies came to develop from inspiration at PTC or even working at PTC. Just to plug another group that's out there, Coasters 101 published an article a couple years ago about a family tree that connects the dots of prominent roller coaster manufacturers and how they're connected to our history. And so, yeah, I mean, they may be competitors, but they're also friends because we're all in this together. And the fact that some of them even, worked for us, with us in their time before they developed to what they are, will always have that. But it's also funny that you asked this today, because just a couple hours ago, one of our employees was standing in the door jamb of my office asking me a question about a park, and I gave her the answer right away, and she writes it down and then looks at me and goes, "How much did you study before you came to work here? Or do you just know these things?" And I was like, the answer that I just gave you, I can't tell you why I know that. I think I've just known it since I was maybe 10 years old, because I grew up in the industry and knowing what my dad did for a living. But there's plenty of other studying that had to happen and is still constantly happening here.
When did you first realize that I wasn't normal?
What's normal?
30-something years ago, you realized that, I'm guessing?
It would,
or a normal job, let's put it that way.
Right. So I knew that my dad worked at, in most layman's terms, a roller coaster factory, but like that sounds so silly when you say it, and we really don't like the word factory around here. That's too industrial and mechanical. And I also knew that you were a police officer, but that had ended before I went to elementary school. But it was probably in like 4th or 5th grade where it really hit me that my dad's job was highly unique, because you are getting to that developmental stage where you have more awareness about the world and learning, and maybe field trips or parents coming in and talking about their jobs, like, oh, you know, Mr. Smith is going to come in today and tell us about being a veterinarian, and Mrs. You know, Tangerine is going to come in and tell us about being a grocer. So it gets to the point where it's like, okay, Janine, how about your dad? Let's bring him in. And he comes in, and it's like, well, we manufacture wooden roller coasters. And all the kids go, oh, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I build K'NEX roller coasters. I think I want to do that when I grow up. So
one of the most, like I'd say, one of the proud moment with Janine. Then there's hundreds and thousands of them. I walked in. I went to pick her up at school one day, and I came in behind her, and I could hear her talk. Just sitting there, and I could hear other girls at her table looking at her and going, "You've been to Disney World, Disneyland, Tokyo Disneyland, Paris Disneyland," and she was in 6th grade at the time. And I'm walking up and I'm thinking, oh, she better not be sitting there bragging about this, because I can't stand that when somebody. And I come walking up behind her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, don't your parents take you there?" And she goes, "It's my dad's job to go to these places." And I was like, "Oh, okay." She's not sitting there going, and you know, and the girls were just dumbfounded that she had been to all these parks. Plus, when we graduated high school, she had been to 15 countries, 36 states. And it's all because either we went skiing there, or it was like, hey, I got to go to Barcelona for an IAAPA meeting in September. You're coming out of school. She'd go to school for 2 days of the new year, and I'm taking her to Spain because it's an educational situation.
Of course, yeah, educational, of course, right?
always, you do a trip report.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You learned the culture, you ate the food, you rode their wooden roller coasters. I think that's a tax write-off if I've ever seen one.
One of the funniest things were in Spain, they don't have dinner till 9, 10 o'clock at night. So everybody from IAPA, I remember seeing Roy Gillian just sitting there at the dinner table going, like, because it's late and everybody's hungry. And so they, would go to different parks and have dinner there. And we're coming back late, and we're coming through Barcelona back to the hotel, and everybody's like, "Hell, let's get back. We're tired. It's 11:30 at night." And Janine makes a mention. She said to her mother, she says, "Mom, look at all those ladies. They're all standing on the corners everywhere we go." And everybody in the bus got real quiet. And I heard her mother just say, "Oh, yeah, I guess they're just hanging around." And she says out loud, "Well, I guess they're just waiting for their moms to come pick them up."
Yeah. Cultures, right?
Connected a few years later.
Yeah, Tom, Janine, Ryan and I, we attended the IAPA Expo November in Orlando. We saw lots of visitors to your booth throughout the week, and it's included members of the American Coaster Enthusiast. And Tom, through the years, I've been at events for the American Coaster Enthusiast, including the annual No Coaster Con in Chicago, and you've been one of the presenters there. But talk about that relationship that you and PTC have with this club.
They're a bunch of lunatics. They're crazy, but I like they're crazy. They like coasters. They love amusement parks. And a lot of them, they had a bad rap for quite a while, but they've become quite a force in the industry with what they've been doing. And as far as my connection with him, I found out about him in '79. I was given an application to join. I just never got around to it. And we used to get phone calls and letters, and I would tell Sam hi. I said, hey, this roller coaster group, they want you to come speak. And he's like, oh, I'm busy that weekend. I got my antique car event to go to. And he said, basically, they want me to fly or, pay my own hotel and everything else. And, they're just a bunch of people that go, the roller coaster crazy people. And he says, I don't know why, but I don't know what they want to hear from me. So once I bought the company, and I got a call from Ray Uberoff, who was president at the time, and he lived up in Allentown. So he came down for a visit, and we walked around and talked, and I was like, now I'm really intrigued. So, I jokingly told him, what Groucho Marx used to say was, I'd never belonged to an organization that had me as a member, but I just never got around to joining. And then the next thing you know, 25, 30 years go by, help Ace out any way I can. We've been storing vehicles for him. Just I think is a great organization, and I'm not a tushy kisser, so I just like hanging out with them. They're really interesting people. There are some lunatics in there that you got to kind of keep your eye on, but they're a good bunch. But there's a judge, there's doctors, a coroner, there's all sorts of business people, and you get talking with them, truck drivers, people who work in factories that they love roller coasters, and that's what they want to do. They want to ride them, and they take their vacations and plan to ride roller coasters. So any chance we get that somebody, and I've told them 100 times, come to PTC, it's free parking, and give us a heads up, and we'll do a tour, give you a walk around, spend some time with you. And it's an open door kind of a thing, but I do like to have that heads up phone call. I don't want 15 people knocking at the door and expecting to get a tour. And I may not be here that day, but I just they're really an interesting bunch. And they're not just the American coaster. There's the European Coaster Club. And then there's the British Roller Coaster Club. There's all these different facets and different people around the world that are involved. It's just a fun bunch. So go ahead, you tell.
Well, we also understand, the enthusiast culture of the amusement industry. Some of them have a really strong voice, and we appreciate fans of our coasters, and they'll go to bat for us. I mean, we don't need anybody to chain themselves to a ride if they say they're going to take it down, but if someone's at an Ace event and maybe a park saying like, oh, well, we're not sure if we're going to keep our carousel, or maybe get a new coaster, clear that land. Oh, we know a lot of Ace members who have an attachment to the history of our company and say, whoa, what are you thinking? Like, future generations deserve to know and ride that ride. So I think that they are a very fun bunch, unique. I ended up marrying one. Never thought that was going to happen. So Ace holds a special place in both of our hearts. Tom created the Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters Inc. Manufacturers Award for a deserving Ace member, and every year that's awarded at CoasterCon. It's a person nominated by their peers through Ace about what they are doing within Ace's behalf and how they're preserving roller coasters and history, and especially wooden coasters. And Tom reviews all of the nominations, and then from there makes a decision. And
we make the decision now.
Yeah, we. But we had the opportunity in 2021 when CoasterCon was here in Pennsylvania. Originally, it was supposed to be 2020, but owing to COVID, it was pushed to 2021. So the CoasterCon was at Hershey Park, Dutch Wonderland, Dorney Park, and Knoebels. But it's perfect because in all of those travels and traversing's, you're coming right into our area. So as Tom mentioned, we do tours, and on that day in June, we gave a tour to 564 acers. So that was a lot of fun. And then
we fed them lunch. And,
oh yeah.
And the thing of it is the other thing we did a bag that had different things in it that, pop socket for your phone, but there was a T-shirt in it, and we had gotten their sizes. They had, when they signed up, they had to leave their T-shirt size. So they got T-shirts, and they're pale blue, and they have our logo on the back, and in front it says
2021 tour.
Yeah, roller coaster tour for Philadelphia Toboggan. And I told everybody, you wear that shirt, if I see you in the park, I will stop you or come up to me wearing a shirt, give me your name and address. You will receive something. And just this past 2 weeks ago, when we were out at Chicago CoasterCon, there were two people that had their shirts on, and we've sent them a very nice gift. Thank you, gift.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So,
I like to call it the PTC shirt in the wild.
yeah.
No doubt, no doubt.
A nice looking shirt.
Oh yeah, it's so comfy. Actually, this summer at a couple ACE events, they were spotted, and it's a great lightweight shirt. It's not heavy, so it's great for the summer season and coaster riding. But all in all, yeah, ACE's and the coaster enthusiast community as a whole. ACE is obviously the largest club throughout the world, but there's also those little clubs that deserve recognition, and they come calling also looking for tours, or they're members, and they live in Minnesota and they're passing through. Welcome.
And one of the most amazing things about ACE was three guys who just happened to be riding the racer at King's Dominion. Just three guys, and they met each other on the coaster, started talking, and said, they ought to have a club. And the three of them started the club. Paul Greenfield, Richard Munch, and Roy Brashear. Three guys who just, hey, what the heck, we should start a club. There they are, 6,000 members later, going into 44 years, 45 years.
Yeah, 45.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me, this is a question that's directed toward Janine. You mentioned that you've got a relationship with American Coaster Enthusiasts, aside from being married to one, of course, but yeah, you enjoyed visiting parks and stuff. Do you ever attend like ACE events, enthusiast events as just a regular, like everyday person, or do you typically attend as somebody
Just
from
try.
PTC?
Well, yeah, sure. Am I a regular everyday coaster enthusiast? Absolutely, but I am always representing the company. So you will not find me doing something that shouldn't be doing. One, because that's not my personality. I'm a very hardcore rule follower. But yeah, so Mike, my husband, he is the Eastern Pennsylvania regional rep for ACE. So I attend all of his events. I help him with all of his events. And so does Tom. And we'll plug East Coaster right now. That's 2 weeks away. So Tom and I will be volunteering for him, but then we'll also be presenting to close out the show at the end of the night. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, because I also love theme parks and roller coasters, sometimes I get to go to a park that isn't a customer of ours, and I can be a little more of a regular person, but it is funny that we may be in a park that they're not a customer of ours, but somehow I always end up finding somebody because you know them through the industry. And so it's a nice, oh, hey, how are you doing? And we're just here enjoying the park for the day. Great to see you. And I never, it's just something, I guess, that was instilled in me, or I just have no expectation. I never go to a park looking for something or trying to sell something either. Especially with Eastern PA, a lot of them are our customers. And so I'm there to attend the ACE event, but if they need something, I'm also there with my phone, writing a note, jotting it down, saying, okay, we'll look into this Monday. But I'm not up there on the platform going, those trains are looking a little old. It might be time for something new. That's not how we roll.
And the other thing is, we mentioned IAPA, we mentioned ACE, but Janine and I are also involved with the PAPA, Pennsylvania Amusement Park Attractions. We belong to the Ohio Greater Coaster Club. We're part of the New England Association, Amusement Association. Actually, we're both on the board for PAPA. And when we go to these things, I don't try to sell anything. I'm not there to make a sale. I'm there to see some friends, and I only see maybe once or twice a year. And it's, it's like relax. Just sit and talk about anything. But I'm not there to try to sell them something. They're there for the same reason, too. They're there for see what's going on in the industry, to see what's going on with the legislator, what kind of tax they're going to try to throw on an amusement park. Just, they're going to tax that hot dog bun $10 extra per person. Whatever the state tries to come up with to make more money, we take it out on the parks, and got to turn it around on the patrons. But no, we're not there to sell. We're there because we volunteer for these organizations, especially the PAPA. It's been in that for a long time. I think it was Herb Schmeck was one of the founding members of it, and it's just if we go to a park, like I said, look at the size of me compared to her, and people say I have a very distinctive voice. So if I'm talking to somebody and somebody's within earshot, I thought I recognized your voice. But one time, Girl Scouts, they had a Girl Scout trip to Knoebels, and everybody's like, "Ooh, we're going to Knoebels," and they needed volunteer adults to drive and take the kids up. So we went up with her girlfriend and her dad, who was also in one of the volunteer fire departments they belonged. And we got up there, and I didn't tell Knoebels I was coming, and they were in the midst of building the Twister, or Mr. Twister. And anyway, we're walking around the park, and I'm not like sunglasses and hat or anything. I'm just
incognito.
We're just walking around, and the next thing I hear is Tom. It's Buddy Knoebel chasing me down. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" He says, "Oh, I didn't know you were here." And I said, "Well, I'm here with the Girl Scouts today." And he goes, "Hey, Tom Rebbie's in the park. Dick, you want to see Tom?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, guys, you just lost me for the day. I'm going to be hanging around with Dick Knoebel a little bit." And as it ended up, her girlfriend's father, John, he came along with me, and we went over to the Twister, and next thing you know, Jim Martini's walking us, and we're standing at the top of this coaster looking at the park while everybody's hammering things and they're building it. And we were going for probably about 3-4 hours. We came back, a couple of the moms were like, "Where you guys been?" Trying to keep count of these little Indians. But that's part of the thing is just went there for the day, and you get recognized, and you get, all right, how can I, we want to show you something. All right, how can I help you? I'm not going to turn and walk away from something, but I'm not there to ask for anything either. And that's probably one of our biggest policies here is like, don't even try to give something to me to, because we're buying steel or aluminum from you. I don't go for that. So, all right, I went off the rails on that one, didn't I?
Yeah, Tom, you mentioned, as long as I let you know in advance that, you do welcome members of AceNet to kind of visit the facility and you give them a tour. But talk about how it's grown over, say, the past 20, 25 years, especially since you relocated to Hatfield.
Well, we went from working out of a building that was like 26,000 square feet that we had to do everything, and it wasn't easy, and it was a lot of time lost material handling. You got to move 10 skids or something just to get something off the rack. That takes time. So we ended up buying a building that's 36,000 square, and we used 36,000 of it, and it's laid out. And it's marked aisleways and marked, especially like OSHA requires a dedicated forklift aisle, and everybody knows that's what it is. It's not the yellow brick road to skip up and down, even though you do have one person that does that. So she is just the Wizard of Oz fan, but
Who isn't?
bigger place. It laid all the machinery out, and made it much more easier to work for guys and not have to crawl over something to get to a machine, or have to worry about sliding a piece of steel down too far that you're going to poke another machine. And so it set out pretty good between the saw shop, machine shop, weld shop. The assembly area is wide open, and it's a lot easier to work in, and a lot easier to material when we do get coaster cars in, or when we finish them up, we can start setting them aside and stack them. We got plenty of room to do that. So it's just a world of difference from going from a Volkswagen to a Cadillac, if you want to look at it that way. So,
Absolutely. I'm glad you were able to expand like that. That's awesome. That's definitely a positive sign in the right direction. So let's kick it back a little bit old school. PTC trains for the longest time up until the 80s ish all had buzz bars, and then most nowadays have been converted to individual lap bars. But some still have buzz bars. Can you talk about that and the decision to switch that? Whether it was your decision or if it was the individual park's decision, and why some still operate on buzz bars?
it was Six Flags. They flat out said they wanted to have individual lap bars for the Texas Giant, and then they also wanted other parks to switch over within their system. And they said we need to develop something that's going to be some individual lap bar. So it took a little time, but we got it done, and we got it done for the Texas Giant mainly. That was pretty much the first one that got them. So if a park comes to us and says, "Hey, we got an idea for something," we try our best with a lot of things to try to accommodate the parks, but there are times where it's just, no, we can't do that. And I'm really concerned about the safety of other riders if we do something like that. So we have to, bow out gracefully on it. But the lap bars came about because Six Flags said we really like something to put in there. And the goofiest thing is we were trying to figure out how we could do it. And I went to a ski club meeting that night, and they had a historian there, and he was showing films of when skiing first started, and how people tied leather straps onto their boots so they could ski. And then they had the one class spring-loaded snap down thing. And then this guy came along. He was a doctor, and he came along with these bindings. And I can't remember the name of them, but you had a plate on the bottom of your boot, and you put your foot in the plate on your ski, and then you reached down, and you took this, and it looked like kind of where I got, not that I'm the one that felt it, but I showed it to Sam the next day, and it look at this is the way this thing comes up and around behind your calf, and it locks your boot binding in there. So we got to be able to come up with some sort of a individual lap bar. They can do it with skis and make it that small. So it kind of started that way, and then we got an engineer involved, and I told him my lunatic idea and how it all developed about. And originally, they were all done with solenoids and electronic, which I believe that Kings Island still has. And but now we have them, they're individual. They have a pedal release in the front if the park wants it, or they have a plunger release. The pedal release we refer to as the chicken pedal, because if somebody gets in the coaster and they decide they don't want to go and they want out and tell the station attendant, they don't have to unlock 24 lap bars. They don't have to unlock 6 or 4, depending on how big the car is. They just got to unlock that car, and then they just got to relock the other 3 or 5. So it's kind of a chicken pedal, but a lot of parks now would like them. So yeah, so it's developed into a mechanical release, and it's been working out pretty good. So we have a patent on it, along with our ADA device that we got a patent on, and we got a patent on our single seat 360 car. So very proud, very happy about that. Okay.
Yeah, Janine, you've got so many different things coming in and out of the shop. How do you keep track of all of that?
So project management, we have a very skilled general manager who can put together the schedule of how everything needs to move from each area of the shop. He learned from Tom, so he does a very good job with that. But it is key to be organized. So if anybody comes for a tour on any given day, they will find our shop very organized and very clean. So that is a huge factor of it, is good housekeeping. And when we hire new people into the shop, that's one of our interview questions is, can you stay organized? Can you work on multiple projects and keep organized? We have a very easy system. Every job is color coded. So as it comes in off the truck, from that point on, all of its paperwork and its paper trail is color coded. All of its project time and management is color coded to that specific job. So that's very helpful. But also just the years of experience with how long we've been doing this is knowing how to schedule and move things about. Who comes in first isn't always the first person out. It just depends on when contracts are signed and when parks need their product back. So we strive to please our customers. And, one example would be a park came in November, but they're going to open in late March, early April. So they need their product back pretty quickly. Whereas, we had a park come in just post Labor Day in September, but they don't need it back until April. So you can kind of play with the schedule there of who needs to do what and when.
And one of the things that Jean touched on is, and I tell people, I don't care what day you come here, it's going to be just as clean as the last time you were here. The staff is really great about it, and we have a set policy that they work 4 10-hour days, and Thursday at 4:15, just stop what you're doing, shut your machine down, clean up your chips, sweep the floor, get everything up out of the aisles, trash cans are empty, and go home for your 3-day weekend. But when you come in Monday morning, you're not stepping on things, you're not tripping over, walking around. It's organized, and the guys do a really great job about it. I jokingly say it's because my mom raised the three of us, and Saturday morning you weren't allowed out unless you had your room dusted, wet dusted top to bottom, and the bathroom was scrubbed out. So it's just one of those things that we've had our fire marshals, the insurance people, and my favorite of all was when OSHA walked in here, and they walked around and they said, "We've been here 20 minutes. There's no way in the world you got this place this clean and this organized in the 20 minutes we've been sitting here in your office talking." And I'm like, I don't care what day you come back, it'll always look like this. And they were just amazed. So that's my favorite.
Awesome. So next question, this is directed at Tom. So you mentioned that if you come out to the Philadelphia area, there's a bunch of amusement parks, and you can come take a visit to the shop if you drop you a line ahead of time to warn you. If you fly in, should you get the insurance on the rental car or not?
Ah, jeez.
You knew I had to ask that.
No, I didn't know you were going to ask
Well,
that. But yeah, I highly suggest, especially if you're going to Italy and you're going to rent a car for a week or 10 days, at $340 to rent the car, and then Janine's getting a charger because her computer is starting to wink at us.
No.
Yeah, so $340 to rent the car for 10 days and $800 for the stinking insurance that they sell you. But I highly suggest you get it, because it doesn't matter what kind of car they gave you, like an Alfa Romeo Giulia. It's a very nice car, or at least it was when I got it. When I turned it back in, and it had a few dings and scratches and broken pieces, and missing parts. Not my fault. The streets are small there and narrow.
Totally.
Yeah, well, Tom, Janine, we really appreciate you taking time out to join us on the Attractions Group podcast tonight. It's definitely on my bucket list to visit the shop one day. I'll definitely let you know in advance. But where can our listeners find you on social media?
Janine just walked back in and she's frantically trying to get extension words together. Where can they find us?
Yeah.
We're on Facebook, Philadelphia Toboggan.com, Philadelphia Coasters.com, I should say. Or just, or just Google PTC, and it'll either come up Philadelphia Termite Control or Philadelphia Toboggan Company.
Well, with the termite control, it sounds like you two would be on the same team since you work with wooden coasters, right?
Yeah, but I got to tell you, I'm going to give you, when I look at your social media posts and that, you literally are bringing your audience into your shop to see what you have going on. You guys do a great job of storytelling through your social media channels.
Get your hand and plug it in.
We're gonna have to scoot close.
All right, I'll hold this.
We're just gonna have to zoom
a little bit.
Here we go. So for those audio listeners, we're we're plugging in the computer on the PTC end because it was about to die. But I can say that that's the least of the problems. That, like, Don and I have done whole episodes where none of the audio comes through and stuff like that. So having to plug in is the lesser of many, many evils.
Yeah, and of course, with our beautiful backdrop, I'm only so close to the outlet.
So very quickly before we let you guys go, so this is a huge episode for people to watch on YouTube. But you have a bunch of cool stuff behind you. You mentioned the ride vehicle behind you. Tell us about those golden tickets on the walls and everything else.
That's one of the coaster cars from Nickel Scenic from Willow Grove Park, and their theme was "Life is a Lark" at Willow Grove Park. On the wall behind us, and pick it up and show you, we have quite a few. Boy, I'm glad I got a haircut. We have quite a few. First place, #1 coaster awards from Golden Tickets. and it's very, very humbling to see all that, but it's exciting at the same time that to know that many people out there like our stuff. So it's great. And like I said, we got other stuff here too. Like, yeah, and there goes the plug again. All right. Anyway, you can see our patents are hanging on the wall. Over on this side, there's a framed piece there that it's a letter from the Pennsylvania governor to me, asking me to be on the ride in Pennsylvania Governor's Ride Safety Committee. So I sit on that board also, and we inspect every type of amusement ride that comes into the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's a good bunch, and it's mainly ride safety.
That's
So,
awesome.
Don, you've been awful quiet there. What's going on? Are you watching a hockey game? Or
No. I'm just looking at everything you have there on the wall and everything, and
I mean,
those are the kind of that interests me. What you have, on the walls and out in your shop, everything that you do interests me. I will ask this though, okay? What kind of skills do you have to be able to work in your shop? Because I have none.
common sense and mechanical ability to know what a tape measure can do. Basic knowledge of wrenches, tools. We have really a diversified group, and some of their backgrounds have nothing to do with roller coasters, but they're good at a lot of things. And I got one guy out there, you can give him a tin can and a chicken heart, and he'll build you a Wankel rotary engine out of it. He's just that kind of a guy. So, we looked and we're very specific when we, or picky, well, not specific, we're picky. I'm picky when it comes to who I'm going to let work on my babies.
You lost me a tape measure, so I don't think I would be qualified after that point.
Don's worried it's going to be in metric or something. He can't handle that.
No, I can ride roller coasters. I couldn't work on them.
Yeah.
Don, you were hanging out in, what was that, some video store or 7-Eleven or something, and that furry beast attacked you? What was going on there?
Buc-ee's. It's that's one of those places that especially as you drive through Richmond, Kentucky, if you're on your way to Tennessee. Love that place. You wouldn't think it to look at it, but they have just the best sandwiches. Ryan can attest for it. He used to laugh, scoff at me for those visits to Buc-ee's, and now he's a big fan. So I highly recommend it if you're driving down the road and you see a sign that says Buc-ee's 686 miles away.
Well, just to reaffirm, if you ever wonder if there's a higher power that smiles upon the Cincinnati area, we've got Kings Island here, which is awesome. Yeah, I've got this, but we got Kings Island here, which is awesome. But we also have Dollywood, about 4 hours south of here in Tennessee. Halfway between here and Dollywood, there is a Buc-ee's in Richmond, Kentucky. That's the one that we always stop at. But on top of that, not only is that your layover, they're building a Buc-ee in Sevierville, which is right off the exit to Dollywood. So you get 2 Buc-ee's for the price of 1 now if you live in this area.
Now, let me mention something else. We were all down in Orlando for IAAPA, right? So after the expo ends, we have a day, and I'm thinking, okay, should I go to a park? Well, Daytona Beach has a Buc-ee's. So I went to Daytona Beach to go to Buc-ee's.
There you go.
Wow.
Yes. I had to go out and visit a customer down south. So the general manager and we were in a southern state, and we were on our way back to the airport, and I said, it's like, Phil, there's a Buc-ee's on the way to the airport. We're going. And he was, okay, yeah, I mean, we got to get lunch somewhere. And I said, oh, you will love this. So, the one that they're building near Dollywood, because, little plug, we'll be attending CoasterCon 45, right? Yeah, CoasterCon 45 in Dollywood in June. And I'm very much hoping that Buc-ee's is up and running, because I plan on, well, not dragging, but we're going.
Yeah, well, I think
You
they
have to.
announced, Don, you keep up with this far more than I do. You probably follow them on Twitter or something, but I think they're saying June is the opening, so could go either
Some
way.
point in June. Some point in June that it should be open. I don't know if it's going to be that early though.
Yeah.
But if it is, you got to go.
Like her and her husband are foodies. So
Yes,
Well, here's the thing.
something
Everyone
deep.
talks about the brisket. Don't get the brisket, get the melt. The melt is better than the brisket, because I tried the melt
It
last
is.
time and it was excellent. And then everyone said, no, get the brisket. It's so much better. And I was like, well, if they're going to top this melt, it's going to be incredible. So my last trip down to Dollywood, I went ahead and I got the brisket, and I, of course, text Don, like, I'm at Buc-ee's. And by the time I get to the car and I open up my brisket, I get a text from Don saying, you should have gotten the melt. It's better. Take a bite of the melt or the brisket. The brisket was excellent, but the melt is better.
Noted.
good to
You got
know.
to get the melt. You got to get the beaver nuggets.
Do they have one of those beavers at every one of the Buc-ee's, or don't
They do, but it's rare. I mean, it's just select times during the week when it's out. And I've been fortunate. My last 4 times there, I've been able to see Buc-ee, so it's been a big deal to me. It's like seeing Mickey Mouse to me, but
better.
but better, right? Not as long of a line to get.
Yeah,
there,
yeah. I
but
mean, how big is Mickey Mouse's gas station? I mean, I've been to the Speedway in Orlando, and it seems like a normal Speedway, but the Buc-ee's that wonderful beaver owns is as big. It's honestly as big as like an old school, like from the '80s Walmart. That's how big it is.
That's funny.
yeah, 120 gas pumps. You can't beat that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Got to do the car wash. Got to do that's an experience in itself.
You got to
too,
use the
so.
restroom. That sounds weird, but they have the finest restrooms in the whole gas station industry.
They're always clean.
Yep, they're as clean as your
Yeah,
shop.
So, now that this is into a Buc-ee's podcast.
But we go
it
off
always
on this
does.
tangent every week.
It does right. Every week we end up talking about Buc-ee's at some point. So much so that they should probably sponsor our podcast, don't you think, Ryan?
I agree.
Hey.
And their ad would look like this. Hold on, let me switch to my camera view. Just imagine, hey Buc-ee's, if you're watching, doesn't that beaver look good on the screen here?
And as Janine mentioned, when she's going different places, she's seen the Buc-ee's. So it is in the heartland of amusement parks, theme parks throughout the country. So we're a good fit for them.
Awesome. So Tom, Janine, do you guys have any final thoughts before we send you on your wonderful PTC way?
Oh, I got lots of thoughts. It's like a squirrel jumping from branch to branch with me. I could clatter on all you want, but you got better things to do. When was it? 8:45. So,
No, you can keep up with us at Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters Inc.com, Facebook, Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters Inc., and Instagram, Philadelphia_Toboggan_Coasters.
And we will link to all of those in the description of both the YouTube video and the podcast description. So, yeah.
When do we get an Instagram?
In the fall, remember someone was posing as us?
No, I don't remember.
So there was someone using our name, and so to listeners out there, don't do that. If you're going to be a fan account, be a fan account. Don't pretend to be someone you're not, because then we'll just come after you.
Right.
Won't be good. So, but yes, you can follow us on all those fun places. And if anybody's ever in the area, Hatfield, Pennsylvania, just give us a heads up. We always do tours.
Awesome. Thank you.
Important.
All right. Well, Don, do you have any final thoughts?
No, this has been a fun episode, and thanks again for your time tonight.
Awesome.
No, thank you for asking. I'm glad How long did it take us to get this? Like 6 months to.
About 6 months, yeah.
Yeah.
You're a busy dude.
But it's okay.
But we were planning on the spring because you mentioned how busy you guys are during this time of year, obviously, because you're opposite of the general park season, so we're lucky to have you now. And we appreciate you taking the time, especially because you're doing this from the office. There's got to be something kind of dirty feeling about that. You can love your job and love your company, but you're still staying after hours.
No matter, that when the snow plow's got to be like if we got snow, I have a pull-out couch. I end up spending a couple days here, depending on how much it is and how many times you got to go out there. So I'm very picky when it comes to snow plowing. So.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right,
thank you guys so
Thank
much
you.
again. Make sure that you're checking them out. Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters Incorporated. I'm sorry, I'm old school. For all your ride rehab needs. All right. Well, thanks again. We'll see you next week, everybody. Good night.